ISO 27001 Annex A 8.5 Secure Authentication. So let's have a little look at what the standard wants us to do, and then I'll show you how you can go about implementing that. Secure authentication technologies and procedures should be implemented based on information access restrictions and the topic-specific policy on access control. So what we're seeing here is, again, it's just a bringing together of tutorials that we've already done and controls that we've already covered. Here we're looking at secure authentication, part of the access control policy, part of the access control process. This is about how technically users actually authenticate against systems. Let's have a little look at what we mean by authentication. So dictionary.com, the act or process of establishing identity and verifying permission to access an electronic device or computer network. For example, password authentication, biometric authentication, authenticating credentials. So we're going to figure out here who needs access to what. We're going to build on our access control policy, our access control processes. Then when it comes to this secure authentication, we're going to figure out how it is that people are going to authenticate against our systems. We're going to do a number of different opportunities and a number of different ways, right? So we've got multi-factor authentication. You can use one or a combination of these. So when it comes to authentication, it's something that you know, something that you have, or something that you are. And oftentimes you'll see within an organization that they'll use a combination of that, right? So a password is something you know, multi-factor authentication relies on something that you have. Combination of those is the most secure. Biometrics is something that you are. So we can think here about iris scans or palm or fingerprint, something like that. So we're going to look at which is the right authentication method for us. The most basic is going to be password, right? Something that you know. So when it comes to your implementation, make sure that you are doing what is right for you based on risk. You're going to have done your risk assessment. You're going to put in place that authentication process. So it's the no-brainer, right? Measures around how do we implement something that prevents us from suffering a brute force attack, from easily guessing passwords, from compromising devices. So we look at what our authentication method is, and we use some common sense approach around that. Use of passwords is probably one of the most traditional, but again, there are things that we need to do when it comes to password management. We don't share passwords in clear text. You know, we don't reuse passwords when we first set up systems. We don't encourage password reuse within our population and within the people that are working with us. So these are things that we have covered before. The access control policy covers it. The building of our access control process covers it. How we distribute it covers it. This is about the technical implementation. You've got to think about the technical implementation, about technically how are you going to implement that authentication into your business. Are you going to use built-in tools, built into Amazon, AWS, or built into Microsoft, built into Active Directory, built into the tools and technologies that you've got? Are you going to layer on top of that some additional controls and some additional technologies? So work out which authentication method you're going to use, what technology you've got. Make sure that you're satisfying the requirements of policy and process, and you're going to be golden. So at super high level, have policies in place, assess your access requirements, perform a risk assessment, implement those controls proportionate to the risk posed, keep records of everything that you do, and then test those controls to make sure that those controls are working. Test those authentication protocols. A couple of mistakes to guide you. So a couple of mistakes that I often see are password management is flaky. So we can see things like, you know, when it comes to password management, having the same password for every user when you first create an account, you know, that can cause you some problems. Having weak passwords. Yes, the standard doesn't dictate the password length, but you've got to be sensible about this, proportionate to the risk that you've got. How are you sending that authentication information out? You know, are you sending it out in the same communication method as you sent the user account? Probably not a good idea. You know, if you email the user their login credentials and then you email them their password, probably not great. So you think about segregation of communication in there. And another problem that we've seen is authentication is weak, right? Having little or no authentication, again, you might as well not have it, right? Yes, I keep pushing as an example, you can have a one-character password, but I use it to prove that you could pass the standard with very limited security, but it isn't something that I encourage you to do. So whatever it is, you've got to be putting in passwords that, you know, of a structure that are hard to guess, but that meet the business requirement, don't add undue bureaucracy, and the controls that you put around that in terms of your multi-factor authentication. So here we really are building upon existing annexes and existing tutorials that we've already done. This is going to be working with your technical teams now to understand technically how do you implement the authentication that you've covered already in policy and process. My name is Stuart Barker. I am the ISO 27001 Ninja, and until the next tutorial, peace out.